Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jessie Alexander, and I am making this very first video, public video. Um, I have videos on here that are actually privated because I did have them public, and you don't need to know all that. I mean, oh, and by the way, I'm not wearing my wedding band because I got sticky ooey gooey dough on it from playing with my son, and so I have to clean it. I had a silicone like exercise, you know, cool girl, like I've got my, because I'm pregnant right now, I can't fit my wedding band. So my wedding ring is beautiful, I love it. It's a simple rose gold, um it's like thin ring. I liked it so much. Um, and I just can't wear it because pregnancy, I just kind of balloon, my weight balloons, everything kind of gets plump, which is funny. So, anyway, I just wanted to make this video because I wanted to try to share my journey about walking with the Lord in a really, hopefully, down to earth, like mama talking to either other mamas or other women or people who are interested in hearing what a mom has to say or a woman has to say about walking with the Lord and how God is moving and how God works. And so I just really wanted to start sharing my testimony more. So yeah, I will just start. I grew up Christian, meaning I was brought up in church, and the really cool thing God did though was He moved in my heart when I was like 4 or 5, and I loved Him at a very young age. I was putting my faith in Him as early as I can remember, and I know there are a lot of people with that testimony of like starting their walk as early as they can remember, and I really doubted it in adulthood whether I was a Christian or not because it was so like such a given for so long. And I just thought like everybody has this experience, and then you hear other testimonies and sometimes they're really encouraging, but you know, have a moment of doubt, and the enemy just kind of sneaks in and starts going, were you really saved? Were you really born again? And then I learned about assurance of salvation, which cannot be taken away from us if we truly have faith and believe in the Lord as our Savior. And so, anywho, I'm just in a stage of life right now where I'm, you know, a mom. I'm bringing up kids in the Lord, and I feel like that just changes you so much, kind of naturally, because you go through pregnancy, and that literally changes you. And then having your child after that, meaning once you meet them face to face, and then it's just everything changes. And it's kind of, it honestly reminds me of salvation in the sense of when you meet the Lord, you're like forever changed. Like you can't kind of go back. And so when we, you know, have, I'm so sorry for my ugly shade right here. I tried to get the painting here in the frame. But those of us who have been brought up like since children to walk with the Lord, it doesn't make it easier. And I wanted to share about that and how, you know, I have had a life really full of doubt and really full of, I guess I'd call it identity crisis moments where it wasn't just my Christianity, but my sexuality. So faith, sexuality, and other things. So it's really interesting how God moves throughout our life in so many ways. And He really, I know people say He moves in mysterious ways, but He really moves actually more like clearly in our lives. Like, it's very, if we really are looking in faith, which really involves using our whole like mind, soul, body to follow him. If we really do that, we'll see how he's really moving in like so many ways. So I ramble a little bit. Okay, maybe a lot, but I hope that that might be a nice style for some of you, or just like kind of silly to some of you, and you're like, I don't really want to hear her rambling. Oh, this is so weird, you know, when you think it's silly. And I've been thinking lately about the Lord and how he's changed my desires for him. I used to really desire God as an adult. When I entered into adulthood, you know, I feel like there's a range there. For me, I really felt like I entered adulthood not when I started working, not when I began college, and not when I got married. It wasn't those milestones. It was just the first time that I moved out of the house, which happened to be when I went to college. But I boomeranged back home, so don't take it as, well, then it was college, because I mean, you were gone for 4 years and all of that. I went to college for 1 year and became depressed. I failed many classes, had a very low GPA, and the Lord, I think at that time, was really trying to show me, like, this is not necessary for you. You know, I was taking out a large amount of loans, which is just student loans that got me in debt, so that I could go to school. And I was also hiding a lot of shame from my childhood during that time. And so I felt like he allowed that downfall of college so that I could get out. And I didn't really heed that warning from the Spirit. And by the Spirit, I just mean, you know, as we walk with God, his Spirit will move us, you know, as we pray and read the Bible and go to church. And during that first year, I believe I was also struggling with church. I remember thinking, I don't really know how to go to church while I'm at college. I don't have a car. And then every weekend, I was going back home almost every weekend. And then when I did go back home, I'd go to my parents' church. But I felt this this pull, and the pull was, I went to their church my whole life. That's how I learned about Christ, and that's why I followed him at such a young age. I don't give my parents themselves credit in like this high, you know, way. I'm humbled that they took us to church, but their role in that was a humble role. It wasn't a high and lofty kind of thing where it's like highly respected or something for me, because parents are really imperfect. As a parent, I now cannot highly esteem myself for anything that I do for the Lord on behalf of my son, on behalf of even my husband. If I pray for him, it's all kind of the Lord working and moving. And so that doesn't mean I don't honor my parents for that, but I just want to make it clear, this is not some my parents are superheroes and I idolize them kind of moment for me. I always felt like convicted about that. That's their church, and God used it and used them too. But no, this isn't, I'm not going to make a lot of comments on my parents, because this is really about how the Lord worked in my life, and hopefully sharing my story and testimony in the Lord and my walk in him. And so I love my parents and I honor them, but the main thing that happened was I was like having a conflict of, I want to go to church, but I don't want to go to my parents' church. And every time I would go home, there's just this repeated pattern. I'm just going to go to their church. And so I felt a tug of war, basically. Like, I'm like thinking so much about college related things and how busy I was. I was working part time and I was tutoring and I had like 18 credits. I was a music major, which is very, if anyone knows, it's a very demanding major. They talk about the biology major being very demanding as well. They're kind of like not the same subjects, but they are the same like workload. It's very demanding. And so it's been a journey when I think about this time in my life, because I went back home, I stopped school, and I used to feel so much shame about that. But actually, I see now that the shame was being carried from my childhood as I went off into adulthood, which began with college for me because I left home. And that really, in my heart, I remember feeling like, man, that's it. Like, that's the end of, childhood and becoming an adult. And it was rough, like the way that it was presented to me by my parents. But I remember thinking, oh, however they, are, however they're handling me going to college and everything, it's really up to me to make this transition with the Lord. And by up to me, it's not up to my parents. Like, if you go into adulthood thinking I can just blame my parents and it's all they're responsible for all of this, you become entitled and you become, well, as women, like kind of like a princess and like I'm in charge. And um you know I I come first, and then and so thankfully God spared me from going down that road. And I just remember feeling adulthood is really hard. That's what I was really grasping, and putting childish things behind me is really hard. And there are a lot of things I could get into, but I won't in this video, about all the stuff that I went through. Like, there's just so many stories of that first year of college that really shaped me and really changed me. And it kind of reminds me of motherhood. And so I'll try to tie that in, because I was going through adulthood for the first time. Everything about that was so new. And and same with motherhood. You go through it for the first time. Nobody tells you everything before you go through a new life transition, like a big change. And so I always struggled with, why didn't anybody tell me? And like kind of like getting frustrated that people don't tell you about this. Why wouldn't they? And it's just funny because the thing about experiencing these big life changes is you have to experience them. You can't, there's no manual that says this is how it's going to go. And I see joy in it now, but at the time I was pretty miserable. And with motherhood, I experienced similar kind of struggles. I've always kind of struggled with mental health. And so, college, like I said, I got depressed. And then in motherhood, I also experienced some depression and anxiety. And then the one thing that was different this time with a big life change was I had a local church that I was part of. Now, it doesn't mean I wasn't walking with the Lord before, but I just wasn't as like interested, I guess, in connecting with other believers when I went through college for that first year. And when I was a first-time mom, I felt like a little bit hungrier for it, but I also struggled with going to church, not just because of the physical like tiredness, but because I'm like, how can I listen to people talking and talk with them and interact and stuff when I have this little baby who needs me all the time? and is crying or sleeping, and so we have to be quiet, or they might wake up, or like it was just, it really became overwhelming, even though I had a stronger desire to stay a part of the church. And so I will say probably my biggest sin in both of these big transitions was the isolation and the loneliness that I was experiencing, instead of it propelling me to just reach out more and just keep in touch and just even the bare minimum. It drove me into isolating, and my pain just was unbearable sometimes, of like feeling so lonely. And that's how I felt in college, just this overwhelming, I'm so alone, like my parents aren't here. I kind of have friends, but they're only friends like when I see them in class. And then I didn't see many people outside of class. And then I had a roommate, and that situation was very unhealthy for me at the time. And so I felt very stuck. And I think when I feel those feelings of stuck and alone, it actually, for me, makes me think I should just isolate more. And so God moved during these times, even though they were very hard and they were depressing and lonely. And He just kept encouraging me to reach out, even if it was small. And to this day, I do struggle with isolating and being lonely. And I think it's funny because mental illness kind of runs in our family. And I talk to other family members sometimes, and it's funny how they talk to me like, you just have all these problems, and like, you know, like you should do this, and all this lovely advice. And it's very generous on the one hand, but then it's kind of like a show in our, like a freak show, where, I mean, there's no one who can really give advice when you think about it. Like, you should take your own advice when you have mental health issues, and like be really careful to give advice to people. That's my feeling, because in college I had that depression. Postpartum, I did have anxiety and depression, and I think I got called out and all kinds of things from well-meaning family. And I almost would like kind of giggle about it. Not giggle, but find humor or lightheartedness about it. I'm like, well, thankfully I'm not any better or worse than you. We're like on the same level or the same ground. And I've never been a big fan of trying to be better than somebody else, or even try to be less than someone else in the mental health realm of things. If you struggle sometimes and you isolate and things like that, I just want to welcome you here, that we are just going to be trying to do our best. And sometimes it's just getting out of the house and being around people. It doesn't have to be people are going to watch your kids. I mean, I get comments sometimes about this, and I just think, of course we might need someone to watch our kids, like, but people, what they're saying is they see this little weak spot or chink in your armor, and they're gonna, kind of like Thomas poking at Jesus's wound. It's just like they doubt that you're gonna be okay because they're concerned, and they are well-meaning. But at the end of the day, you have to walk with the Lord in faith. And if you are like me, someone who it's really hard to grow friendships and relationships that are super close and super tight knit, and you wanted that when you were a kid and it didn't work out, and then now as an adult you're trying to start from scratch, for even if it's been a while, like a decade or two. You might still be feeling that kind of just starting from level one. And I would say now I feel like I kind of understand why I have those patterns, and that's why I know I can talk about these things confidently, and also do something about them and not feel like I didn't go to somebody else's standard of connecting and social, elitism. Because in our society, I want to just give people credit, there's a lot of pressure to have like this certain looking social life and a certain personality or temperament. And I'm not someone who fits into a mold. Um, and it's so funny because um, even I sometimes put myself in some sort of mold, and then I'm like, wait, oh, that wasn't me. I had an idea about myself, and I was wrong. And so, yeah, I'm hoping to make more kind of chatty vlogs like this to show, first of all, concern for those of us who have loneliness and isolation and mental health tendencies of, you know, just struggling. And I just want to be able to share my walk with the Lord in that. And I'm going to be asking for people in real life to hold me accountable to sharing this in integrity and in good conscience, so that I'm not wasting your time or my time. So hopefully this will be a blessing, and I hope that everyone's having a really good week. It's been a crazy time in our nation. If you live in the United States, if you are not from the United States, welcome to this channel that I live in the United States, so I'll share from my perspective as an American. And yeah, I'm just thankful that I get to chat and share a little bit. There's so much more. I mean, everyone, you, me, your neighbor, is so unique. So we want to honor that here and honor the Lord in our testimony. So I hope that you have a wonderful day. Talk soon.